D4 has been out for nearly 2 years now. It has had its up and downs throughout these 2 years, but there's no question about it. The game has seen a lot of improvements. If you've been here from the start, then you'll remember the times of sifting through thousands of rare items and filling up your stash tabs with aspects. Yikes.
In 1.1.1, we're going to be adding an additional stash tab for players so they can store.
Despite that, though, the D4 bad meme is still going strong, and it has a lot to do with 2 reasons. 1. People got fed up with Blizzard's bullshit and insane monetization. And 2. The game has the potential to be much better than it currently is. And while there's not much to do about the former, in this video I'll list 10 features that D4 desperately needs to become the great game it was meant to be. And we're starting off with what you all thought were the most important factor, the endgame. I'll agree on this one. D4 definitely needs more endgame. But here's a caveat. It's extremely important what we mean when we talk more endgame. Because Diablo 4 already has a shit ton of different endgame activities. The Pit, Nightmare Dungeons, Hordes, Citadels, the Undercity, Uber bosses, and the whole fucking open world. So why does it feel like D4 has no endgame? Well, damn. Because there is no friction or difficulty, no complexity, and there are no meaningful rewards. Basically, what you currently do is level to 60, which takes a few hours. You push to Torment difficulty, which takes 1 or 2 additional hours, and then you're done. Everything you do past this is gathering incremental damage and defensive upgrades. Basically, you're doing the exact same things at hour 6 as you're doing at hour 600 of your playthrough, just to increase the numbers on your screen. There's nothing to strive for. Slap on the same generic mechanics season after season, and there's nothing new happening either. So what do we do to fix this? Well, fortunately for us, we already have a lot of endgame activities. Sure, we'll eventually need more, but for now, let's focus on what we already have in the game. First off, we have Nightmare Dungeons. You run these to gather obducits, to masterwork your gear, and, well, that's all you do. And they are generally worse at gathering obducits than its alternatives. This, I think, is by far the biggest missed opportunity in the game. And why is that? Well, shit, we have 150 or so dungeons that are not being utilized. I view these as D4's version of maps from PoE or monoliths from last ECOC. There are so much good shit we can do with these. For starters, why not let us craft on our nightmare sigils like in Path of Exile? You can add a buttload of different fun modifiers, making it the top choice to farm ancestral gear. Just imagine for a second that we're crafting 6 modifiers on our nightmare sigils. Each of these modifiers could potentially increase the level of the mobs by 10 levels, making the content insanely difficult, but at the same time boosting the rewards to the fucking moon. We could then expand the Nightmare Dungeons even further. For example, we can utilize the previous seasons, dropping a unique and rewarding Nightmare Sigil every now and then that will open up one of the vaults from Season 3, ending with an Uber encounter from Malphas that we completely ditched after Season 3 for some reason. And in case you have no idea what I'm talking about because you skipped Season 3, no worries, a lot of people did LOL. Okay, let's work our way through some more endgame activities and how we can utilize them. For example, we have the Dark Citadel. Feel free to comment below how many times you've done the Dark Citadel. I'd say the overwhelming majority would say either 0 or once. And it has a lot to do with it forcing multiplayer and a lot to do with it being unrewarding. Here we have, yet again, a lot of untapped potential. Why not make a Citadel expansion, but this time add wings allowing solo play? And to actually make it rewarding this time, have 4 or so different layers of difficulty with cosmetic rewards. Layer 1 should be easy and doable for most people, 2 more difficult, and the last one should be near impossible for most players. This could be a fun way to show off my humongous balls in town, showing everyone who's the man. Next, we have the Pit. I personally had a lot of fun in the pit when it was released back in Season 4, and a lot of fun in Season 5. Some fun in Season 6, and now, well, not as much. And again, this is mainly because Blizz keeps introducing product that feels unfinished and just leaves it there. So what needs to happen with the pit? For starters, you need to add more layers of the pit. You should never run out of mobs and have to backtrack. This has been happening for several seasons now, and it's insane to me how it's still a thing. Secondly, this feature definitely needs a leaderboard. Pushing the pit is incredibly boring, but pushing the pit without a leaderboard is even more boring. This should be an easy fix, and it would actually make me want to do some pit pushing each season, simply to compare how far I came each season. And on top of that, you should absolutely receive either more loot or more high-quality loot the higher you are in the pit. Why this is not in the game, yet also stuns me. Alright, when it comes to the Infernal Hordes and the Undercity, I'm still enjoying both of them. But of course, we can still make improvements. For example, removing some of the shitty boons and replacing them with something fun and interesting. And when it comes to the Undercity, adding a few additional dungeons wouldn't hurt, but the most important and quickest factor, in my opinion, is the rewards. With the lack of tributes, target farming in the Undercity simply does not work currently, and it's mainly a means of obtaining obducits. I definitely think this mode missed the mark there. Now, asking you losers, there was something you wanted to bring up here, and that is PvP. I don't personally do any PvP, but apparently a bunch of you want more of it. So I guess that could be a thing to add upon. And finally, the last factor when it comes to the endgame, and that is grow some goddamn balls and try something new and difficult. Now, during Season 5, when the Hordes were launching, I thought they were going to be some kind of dungeon crawling mode. It wasn't, but that's something I would personally enjoy. Now I'd like to introduce a suggestion. So just close your eyes and envision for a minute a mode where you run a dungeon that gets progressively harder as you go. Along the way, you find boons, buffing you in different ways. You keep going as far as you can before you get overwhelmed and die, granting you the loot you've obtained. Funnily enough, I tried exactly this mode in a game called Hellcock, and it was fun as shit. Basically, it's an ARPG Hades, and it would work perfectly as a Diablo mode in my opinion. It would also be the only mode that requires speed, defensives, and a buttload of damage. Currently you have the pit for big dam and defensives, and well, everything else for speed. Something that requires all of it would be neat. So that's the end game. Let's take a break from D4 for a sec, because now there are a buttload of games releasing in the upcoming month. And if you're anything like me, you want to play them all, but you're broke as shit and can't. Fortunately for us, though, I'm now sponsored by the best gaming website out there, Instant Gaming. This is where I buy all of my games at a huge discount. And unless you're a donkey, then you need to make sure that you do it as well. Because why in the hell would you want to spend more of your hard-earned cash than necessary? And while there may be other websites that also has gaming discounts, Instant Gaming is the only one I'll vouch for. Because if you find any issues whatsoever, then their support is always open. So make sure to press my link in the description, bookmark that shit, and save some cash. Alright, so we've covered the most important and most massive piece to make the game great, the end game. Now let's check out some smaller ones that would make the base game feel just that much better. Starting us right off, we have more meaningful gearing. Currently, gearing doesn't matter past a certain point and feels unrewarding, according to you fuckheads at least, and that's despite the huge item overhaul we had in Season 4. So, what's really the problem here? Personally, I think that the biggest problem with itemization currently is the skewed power from different sources. Namely, I think that the boring power sources grant way too much power, and these boring sources are aspects, weapon tempers, and overpowered paragon nodes. Having an aspect, paragon node, or a single temper grant, you double the damage is so mind-numbingly boring. Just as an example, a single aspect can double your damage. The temper can double it again, and then you have a single paragon node doubling it yet again on top of that. Compare that to upgrading your gear, where you find a triple GA perfect ancestral item, and the thing grants you a 5% damage increase or something. It's just dumb. Gearing will never feel good until aspects are completely fucking gutted, along with the most over-tuned paragon nodes and weapon tempers. Gearing should be the ultimate goal of the game, and currently, once you've obtained single GA items, you're basically done with the season. Hell, it barely matters what stats you have on your gear. Sure, we upgrade our aspects to make ourselves stronger, but in terms of how interesting that is, it just doesn't come close to how fun it should be to get a triple GA legendary. And speaking about triple GA legendaries, we definitely need some kind of chase uniques that does not drop from spamming the same bosses over and over for a gazillion times. Drop-kicking Duriel in the balls thousands of times felt rewarding for the first or 2 seasons, but it has simply turned into something that you need to do to start playing the game rather than something rewarding to strive for. Alright, so that's meaningful gearing. Next up on the agenda we have, yep, you guessed correctly, a fucking loot filter. It's time. You've made your point. You want us to collect all loot and salvage it. But we don't want to do that. Once you're far in the endgame and get legendaries flying all over the place, it gets old. And I've got a suggestion for a simple loot filter. Hear me out. Rather than making a complex path of exile or last epoch filter, a simple ticking of boxes would suffice. Automatically salvage regular legendaries, rares, and blues. Get this in the game, and we got what we need. Next up, we have crafting changes. Apart from the weapon tempers being absolutely broken, tempering is a solid crafting system. What's not as great is masterworking. Gathering up your materials and upgrading them until you hit the jackpot is a fine system, but man, the amount of clicking you need to do here is simply insane. And it's my biggest issue. I stopped trying to hit 3 out of 3 masterworks. Not because I don't want to farm abducets, but rather because I simply can't stand pressing the masterworking button for thousands of times to do it. And of course we have a simple fix, just reset the latest 4 masterworks. You'd then hit 1 out of 4 and start working on 2 out of 8 after that. You can drastically increase the price of the highest masterworks. I don't give a shit, we just need less clicking. And speaking of less clicking, the Enchanting guy. Holy hell, do I want to chop this guy's balls off. I hate him with a passion, and Enchanting gear is by far the worst part of this game. It's a slot machine, and it's been pissing us off for almost 2 years now. All you do is click one button for hundreds of times until you hit the correct stat, and then you're done. It's not rewarding in the slightest, and it's just an annoyance. And the solution? Easy. If we want to keep him as is, why not do the exact same thing as we did with tempering? Group the different stats in groups of 4 or 5 and have each of them the same chance to enchant. Feel free to increase the cost, I don't give a shit, I just need less clicking. As it currently stands, it feels as if Blizz has a vendetta against people with arthritis. Alright, let's keep going. For number 6, it's finally time to add an auction house. It has been said many times before, but it's definitely time. Trading is a huge feature of Diablo 4 when it comes to obtaining power, but it's unobtainable for all the casual players, especially the console newbies. This is due to forcing us to utilize third-party websites that barely ever works and are filled with scammers, duped items, and real money trading. I was previously against an auction house knowing I would just sit there all day long and sell items. But spoilers, that's what I'm already doing, just with extra steps and more annoyances. It's time, Blizz, and you'll get an actual win being one of the few ARPGs with an actual auction house. Number 7, new spells. Diablo 4 has one of the most bare bones and easy skill trees out of all ARPGs, which is not necessarily a bad thing when most of its player base is dumb as a brick, but still, there is so much potential to expand upon the skill tree. And if we just think for a second, is that not exactly what we're doing each season with the seasonal powers? We need to make a choice in what powers we grab, which is usually a skill, and roll with it. So why not just drop another cluster of skills instead during an expansion, or at least a skill or two every other season? This would increase the game's complexity over time for sure, but I would argue that the skill tree would still be easy to digest, even for dummies. This also brings me on to topic number 8, and that is uniques. Blizz keeps adding uniques to the game, which I think is great, but I also think that they're doing themselves a disfavor here, because they're doing a lot of extra work. And what do I mean by that? Well, just look at the Season 8 uniques as an example. Each unique added is used for one build, and one build only, up to a few at maximum. And on top of that, a lot of the builds getting new uniques are so shit that half or so of them won't be used anyways. So to summarize, we got 6 new uniques. They're used for 6 skills only, and most of them will barely be used. Now that's a lot of work down the drain. I think it's fine to add uniques for a single skill, but when there is already a lack of interesting and generic uniques, I would much rather we add those. Because let me ask you, my dear viewer, what is more interesting? A unique that you know beforehand that you'll use with a certain skill, or having a bunch of different uniques to try and experiment with for a bunch of different builds? I'd say the latter, for sure, at least in an ARPG. For topic number 9, we need some specialization changes, namely specialization changes for the Barb and Sorceress. The Emo is okay, the Cringeborn is fine, the Fat Woodchopper is pretty cool, and the Rogue is perfect, but the other two, they are simply boring. Let's start with the Shit Smearer. All of the current specializations are some kind of damage boost, and you always go with two-handed weapon expertise. Nothing here brings anything interesting to the table, and most of them are just dog shit. These definitely needs an overhaul. If not completely remade, then at least bring something useful for each of them, because as it currently stands, we only have one option. When it comes to the Sorceress, these are definitely more interesting than the Barb. But still, most options here are useless trash. For example, an 8% chance to cast a meteor on a lucky hit. I actually lolled when I read this just now. A few of these would be useful with some number changes, making them actually useful, which could be a start. And finally, for our last topic, we need a vision for the future. The game is fine, but it can be great. We're getting a roadmap in April, but with the track record of D4, the question is if we as players are able to influence what's coming in the future seasons or not. I'm a D4 superfan, but getting another 4 seasons of recycled bullshit mechanics, and even Mr. Pera gaming Big D Senpai may take a break from the game. And if we get another expansion without Mephisto or Diablo in it, people will riot. Respect your players, and they'll do the same to you. That's my personal top 10. What's yours? More lingerie cosmetics? Yeah, I thought so. See you in the next one, Kings, and check out Instant Gaming, for the love of God.